Hey YouTube. So I've run out of logs at the moment. It's a cold day, but at least it's no precipitation. This is 3/16 sheet metal, and what I'm doing here is I'm actually cutting out the pieces that I need to make another one of those jigs for cutting bevel siding. I like the jig compared to using wood or anything, and there's a little bit of work to it to make them, to flip them back and forth from level cut to a bevel cut, but it's not that hard, and it's a pretty nice little handy jig to throw on and off at a Woodmizer. You don't even have to bolt them down because the dogs hold the log in place, and the log will hold these in place. So anyway, what I do is I mark this, and it's approximately 4 inches by 8 inches for the first cut, and then I go ahead and I use one of these blades to cut it out. The problem with cutting it out with the blade is that you don't end up with a really nice straight cut. I should probably get myself a chop saw, but haven't done it yet. I have a miter saw. I could put a blade on that, but I just didn't do it. But what I do then is I take the metal piece and put it in the milling machine and square it up nice, so I get some really nice welds on it if I square it up. So this would be one of the pieces for the jig, and then the jig requires a notch cut in it. So what I do is I cut the notch so that I can put the pin in there that adjusts the siding from 1/4 inch to 3/4 inch. So then once the pieces are cut out, this is the top of the jig. I start welding them together. So what we have here is this is the base of the jig. What happens here is this rests on the bunk. Okay, now this has to be ground down a little bit and stuff, but this basically where the bunk, this goes around the bunk, this goes on the side towards the operator side of the machine on the bunks to keep the cant from moving. Then what happens is this piece basically goes on top of that and it slides up and down. That one's a little snug. I already ground this one, so let me just put it on there. It goes up and down using this pin in here. So what happens is at this end there's a 1/4 inch bolt welded to this and also welded to that. So all you do is set that over top of that, and the bolt keeps this from moving. So it also holds it up and makes it a 1/4 inch thick. So then I'll put a pointer on here, and right now the pointer would be down, so you just turn that to get the bevel cut. So the pointer would be pointing straight out. So straight cut, bevel cut. So there'll be 2 of these on the bunk. I have to fully weld everything. Now this is only 3/16, and you might think to yourself, geez, 3/16 doesn't hold very much weight. Well, the truth of the matter is none of this holds any weight here unless the cant is got a bend cut in it, which really isn't any good. Most of the weight and all of the weight actually goes on here and back here where the bolt is. So it's solid. There's a 1/4 inch plus 2 3/16 inch pieces of metal there holding that on top of the bunk. So really the only thing holding the log up, the cant up, is this end and that end. So it doesn't matter that it's made out of 3/16. So like I say, the pointer would be on there. Just roll it down, roll it back up, and that's how you would cut with it. So having the milling machine works pretty nice. I didn't grind these welds off yet because I got to weld the whole thing. But you need this big piece in here. I was trying to figure out a way to make that smaller, but there's really no good way to make that smaller because you need to have 3/4 inch one way and 1/4 inch the other. So this is just about what I've come up with to make this work. And they do work nice. That's the thing. You get some really nice precise cuts. Now when you set these bases on the bunk, what you don't want to do is set the base you know, at the extreme end of the log on each end. What you want to do is try and get it in, like say if you have a 12-foot log, if you could come in a foot or two on each end, that would be ideal. An 8-footer, if you come in a foot or so, 8-footers aren't too bad. Usually the cant doesn't bend that much as you're going down. The only thing I'm thinking here is this is how much wood's left from the cant, about 2 inches when you're all finished. I think I just might cut this off an inch. That'll give me enough room. In fact, I think I will cut it off at 3/4. What that would do is give me a 1-inch board left, and that you can always use. So that's where we're at so far. And I'm actually making these for one of the subscribers that I have from, I think he's in South Carolina. And hopefully he'll be contented with these once I'm finished with them. So then just to recap that, see when you cut this you end up with these rough edges on there. And them suckers are very sharp. You know, when you're using the grindstone to cut them. So what I'm trying to do then is to straighten them out a little bit. Let me grab this quick. Sorry about that, guys. So then I take a file. After I cut it out with the thing, with the grinder, I take the file and get rid of that razor edge that's on there. It doesn't take much to knock it off. I'm doing this with one hand. I usually have two. And then I'll put this in the milling machine and square the top off. Now I was taking and putting this metal on here. If you don't have a milling machine, I was using this straight edge, and then just take the file and mark that. And if you look across there, you can see where it's shiny, so that's where it's hitting. And this is the thing about working with steel or wood. You know, once you know where you're hitting, then you know where the high and low spots are, and you can adjust yourself accordingly. So that's how I go about doing that. And then, like I say, from this stage, it goes into the milling machine, gets squared up a little bit, and that's where I cut the holes out for the cam. So when you make the cutout in the 3/16 for the cam, okay, the cam is very precise, 1/4 inch by 3/4 of an inch. All right, I actually made this from a piece of well casing, but anyway, it's 3/4 inch by 1/4 inch. When you cut this key out of here, the hole, you can't cut it exactly 3/4 because you need to be able to rotate this. So it has to be the distance minimum from one corner to the other. Now that might not seem like a big deal, but you can't turn it. Once you put it in there, see, you can't turn it in there like you can this one if you make it too small. So you have to make sure you have it the right size and everything before it'll work well. So I got to take this one back to the milling machine, make it probably I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch or less, bigger, 1/16. I'll probably do it. So this is what I was saying about being able to turn this cam in there. See, now that fits nice, and there's a little bit of a loose fit, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. So as long as that turns in there, that's good. So I'll just take a pin marker, and I'll file this off a little bit on the edges to make it nice, and then I'll go ahead and mark that on this one, and then I'll cut that one out. So if your eyes aren't as good as mine, you can put a little bit of dicum, which is that blue dye, on the metal. Now when I said, wait, I think I said that wrong. If your eyes are not good, like mine, then you can put dicum on there, and you can see the marks pretty good. Now this is not any kind of high precision thing. I'm just doing this because I don't have any easier way of making the actual cut than doing it this way. So, and it gives me a little bit of a chance to use the milling machine because you know, I bought it and I'm not really using it that much. I actually would like to buy a bigger one, and I probably will sometime in the future. But for right now, this little thing is, I'm having a lot of fun with this. It does what I need. I did make some jigs to cut AR-15 parts out of, or not parts, but the plate to be able to drill the billet, and that worked out pretty good. So this thing is a Grizzly, I'm going to just say Go 758. But like I say, it's not that big of a mill, but I'm really happy with the way it works. Seems to cut pretty nice. You know, you don't want to try and take too much with this little mill. And here there's a little vibration and stuff there, but it's not bad. So I'll make like 3 cuts with that 3/16 steel. And I'll be happy with this when it's finished. And again, I'm only eyeballing this. I'm not using any numbers or, you know, trying to make it precise. It doesn't have to be. Just trying to make it look so that it's nice. Got to make one more pass there to make it a little bit wider. So like I say, I'll just take and file the rough edges on that a little bit just to give them a little curve so there's nothing sharp on there. And that'll be good. Okay, so these pieces can be welded together now. Okay, so then what I do to help hold this thing for me, since I don't have 3 hands, I cut a piece of oak in there. It doesn't matter what kind of wood it is, on the miter saw, a nice straight cut for the width that I need to clear this, because this rides on top of that. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you don't want it to be so much that it's jiggling all over the place. So I have it about a 1/16 bigger than this. So the inside of here is about a 1/16 bigger than that. You can see right here what I'm talking about. That little difference there, just to make sure it doesn't bind up. So in order to get that, I put the piece of wood in there, and then I clamp this, and then I'll go ahead and tack that. I want to raise this piece up a little bit so that I'm welding into half of that metal at least, and then I'll weld it along here. and that ends up with a pretty nice piece or a pretty nice cut, and they seem to last pretty good. And then after I'm all done with this, again I'll brush it up a little and then probably paint them.